This is Kalin Jordan here with Katherine Tipper. Welcome back to Planarchy. On this podcast, we spend a lot of time talking about money, retirement, and the assumptions baked into that industry. But there's another layer that shapes everything, and it's often quietly, which is how financial professionals communicate, how they explain what they do, how they show up consistently, and how they build trust in a highly regulated world. So today's guest works right at that intersection, Erika DeBlasi, founder of Advisor Expressions. Erika partners with financial professionals to help them communicate clearly and consistently without losing their voice or overcomplicating their message. She's built her career across graphic design, executive marketing leadership, logistics, and financial services. And she spent years working inside environments where precision and nuance really matter. Erika, we're so excited to have you on Planarchy and hear your unique perspective.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you both.
Yeah, you are very much in the, you see how the sausage is made. So, so I appreciate you coming and going, yeah, this is what really happens.
Yeah. Let's jump into our signature questions because, we've got a lot of things to ask you, Erika. What were you doing 15 years ago?
So I had to go back and look. 15 years ago. Time just kind of blends together after a while, you know? So 15 years ago, I was just starting as the creative director at a broker dealer and building my team. So I was like hiring designers and web people, and that broker dealer primarily had advisors that focused on the 403B space, and they had their own TPA and they had their own RIA. So I was like dumped into the financial services industry, like no idea what I was doing as far as finance. I knew what I was doing as far as marketing and design and branding, but the finance world was all new to me and gibberish at that point. And I was also taking golf lessons because I refused at all these golf events that they have in the finance world. I refused to be driving around on the drink cart. I was like, I'm going to be participating. So I had a golf pro and I was learning how to play.
Was that your first job in financial services?
It was, yeah. Before that, I had worked in publication. So I've worked at the tabloids. I started at Star Magazine, and they had a bunch of glossy magazines, car, health magazines also. But yeah, I worked in that industry. I worked in the logistics brokerage industry. I had worked at the PGA of America headquarters. Didn't know how to golf then, but I learned how to golf later.
Crazy.
After that, I love that you learned to golf once you got into this business, but when you worked for the golf business, you were like, I don't need to know this.
Right. I wasn't invited to golf events then to play golf. That was professional, you know, you observe the pros. But yeah, in finance, then it's like, okay, that's where stuff is happening.
When you were that age, what did you think that you'd be doing in 2025?
I think at that point,
or 2026, man.
Yeah, I know. It's 2026. Yes. We're well into it too. We're like, deep in 2026. Yeah. I think I thought I would be probably still at that company. I thought I was going to, you know, keep moving along, and I did move up and get promoted and was the, you know, vice president of marketing by the time I left. But after, you know, 5 mergers and lots of changes in a short amount of time, that isn't how things went. So
it's funny how these days that you don't have to actually change your job. Your job can change for you a bunch of times.
Yes.
So
that is true.
So tell us a time in your professional life when you felt like you were the odd person out.
What about that event at Sway where everyone was singing? Okay, Katherine, I was the odd man out.
Okay, what was this? You'll have to give me some context.
There was an event at this marketing conference we went to, and it was like a surprise event, and you go into the room, and I went in and sat down, and then everyone starts singing. There's someone with a guitar, and everyone's like, it's like campfire singing, and everyone is loving it, except if you look at my face in the room. And I'm like far away from the door thinking, oh boy, okay, yeah. I was out of my element there. But I mean, when I first started in the financial services industry, I was out of my element. I didn't know like TPA, 403B, RIA. Like I didn't know any of these things, what they meant. And I would go to conferences and, people would say, "Oh, are you with a broker dealer?" And I'm like, I don't know, honestly. I'm brand new and I'm here. But I was out of my element, but I also took it as a challenge, and while I was working there, I got my Series 7. I got the certified retirement counselor designation. I talked with advisors. Like that was the biggest learning experience, like just really talking with advisors and asking them, how they're working with clients. What are the concerns of the clients? How are they helping them? What are they bringing to them? So all that was awesome because I got pushed into the deep end but I learned a lot.
That actually sounds a little bit like a theme.
Yeah.
You get pushed in and then you get your golf. You learn how to golf. You get pushed in and then you get a Series 7, which I'd say, that's a big commitment to learning this stuff. Though, do you feel like it, as a marketing person, that it helps you to have those really fresh outside eyes that go, I don't know what this is, and that's important to try to figure out how that's what most of the customers feel. So,
right. Yeah. You're exactly right, because it really helped and I think was a benefit. And that's probably part of the reason I got hired, because I came in and I looked at the firm I was working for was really good about creating a lot of materials for their advisors. A lot of broker dealers don't do that. They, you're just kind of on your own. But this was an independent broker dealer, but they created a lot of materials. And I was able to come in and look at, here's what you're handing to clients, and if I don't really understand it, how is this client understanding it? Right. So that was a benefit in the beginning, that I could look at everything with a fresh pair of eyes and not have that prejudice of like, well, that's always how we talk about annuities, or that's always how we talk about mutual funds, and do I even know what the difference is between the, so that was helpful in the beginning for sure.
Oh, and then I also wanted to chime in on Sway, where we met, and it is just crazy that I feel like you sit at a table, you're supposed to think really deeply about yourself and write it down, and then suddenly share it with the people at the table and possibly the whole room. So there was like certain levels where when you say, I was fine with singing on the campfire, but there was a certain moment when I'm like, I think with one person I started crying, and I was just kind of like, I was not prepared to come to a conference and start crying because
it sounds like the conferences I used to go to.
Okay.
Yeah, and like the nonprofit space and like the political space is often very encouraged to have your heart on your sleeve, like expose your vulnerabilities. But man, I thought when I came into this, it would be the opposite. Not that encouraged at all.
Marketing financial services, you really think that you're going to, it is going to just be talking about broker dealers, and that sounds safe, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you had a master class that you were going to be about something you're passionate about, what would your master class be? It doesn't have to be work related. Is there a master class that you feel like you could teach?
I think I would teach something on meditation. That's sort of my my little hobby that I have, and I've studied and tried a lot of different kinds, and I think it's something that a lot of people, maybe like finance, are kind of like, like, oh, I don't want to talk about that or do that, or I can't do that, I can't sit still. And it's something that I think everybody could benefit from if they tried and found a method that works for them, because there's so many ways. It's the same thing with finance, right? It's maybe like, oh, I don't want to look at that, I don't want to talk about that. But once you do, then it's like, oh, this is very helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important to know how to quiet your mind, and I find that one of the hardest things to do.
Me too, Catherine. I'm so envious of anyone who can meditate like that. I've never been able to quiet things down.
So then do you have a hype song that you, when you walk into a room, you want a hype song, or do you actually want like meditative bells to help you?
maybe the meditation first and then the hype song, right? To get the energy up. I think I would, I love Lenny Kravitz. So maybe something like Lenny Kravitz, Or are you going to go my way? Some old school song like that to get the energy
Nice.
going.
I do love the energy of that song.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about, from your perspective, what do you feel most people misunderstand about marketing in financial services? Because it is a very sort of niche space, and there are a lot of things that we don't talk about when we're marketing too.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is advisors think there's so many, or anyone in finance thinks there's so many constraints, like it's not even worth doing it. Or there's so many restrictions, or compliance isn't going to approve anything, so why bother? Where I think there's a wide variety of marketing and what you want to do as far as your communications. Like it could be something just like, hey, I just really want to focus on my communications with my client base and make sure they really feel connected to me and like I'm paying attention and I'm in touch with them on a regular basis. To the broad marketing of I want to be attracting new people and building followers and be known and be a known brand in my area. But within all of that, just because there's guardrails from compliance and from your firm, or maybe just topics you don't want to talk about, doesn't mean that it's not worth doing it.
We hear that often from advisors. Compliance,
Yeah.
compliance.
Yeah.
So that's not surprising at all to me.
Honestly, I think they're kind of an excuse sometimes too. Like, well, I'll just blame
That's
compliance because I actually don't want to put in the effort and the work to do it. And it's easier to just say, well, compliance won't let me do it, than to really dig in and look at like, oh, maybe I do need to have this. If it's an important part of your business is communication, which I think it should be. Even like I said, even if it's just communicating with your clients and staying in touch with them and making sure they're informed, but I know it's hard because you're getting pulled in a million different directions and the clients need you and you're focused on that. But if you don't stop and take a minute to evaluate, what am I doing here? How am I being intentional about how I'm communicating with my clients? If you're not being intentional, you're still communicating with them. It just may not be what you meant, because you may be communicating that it's not important for me to stay in touch with you or to keep you up to date on things that are happening or things that I want you to know. So there's an interpretation there, whether or not you're part of it or it's just happening.
Well, you started to kind of answer my next question, which is, like advisors are really good at what they do, but they do seem really hesitant often to put themselves out there. Not every advisor, but more frequently. Why do you outside of the compliance excuse, like why do you think that visibility is so challenging in this industry?
Well, and you're right, this industry in particular. I mean, it's hard for everybody because now everything is so oversaturated, right? So social media, your online presence, email campaigns, however you're doing your communication, podcasts, like there's so much of it out there. So it can be intimidating because you think, well, how am I going to be different? Or what am I going to be putting out there that's of value? And it is it's a time commitment, whether or not it's big or little. It's still a time commitment that you're going to do it if you're going to do it consistently. So I know it is intimidating. And then I think in financial services, especially, there's maybe this preconceived notion that, I have to be like a bank, like boring and stable and, like a robot, and everything's got to be a certain way. And so then people are also, hesitant of how am I going to go out there, be out there and express myself, and not turn people off. And I think, part of that is, again, just taking the time to think about what am I trying to do? Who am I trying to talk to? What do I want to express? And there is a way to do it, even if you have guardrails. And I think, honestly, the things that they're worried about, what if I say or do the wrong thing? Most people, I don't think, would honestly say those things. Like an advisor isn't going to go and on social media be like, I can guarantee you money. Like, that's not naturally what they would want to say or how they would come across. So I think it's a low risk. The advisors that are good and that have been doing this and are helping people, they know, what to say and what not to say. And that's not even the messaging that they would lead with, the things you're not allowed to talk about or to, be promissory. Most advisors don't talk like that anyway. They're more concerned about their client and their questions and what's going on with them than making like a sales pitch at people, right?
Yeah. What I think what you're driving at a lot is how to get financial advisors to realize that is their authentic voice. That is probably the most powerful thing versus the expert voice. And I think maybe that's the hard thing in general is we all want to present as experts, but I think what a lot of people want to do is work with a financial advisor they feel they can work with, someone basically they can trust. And social media is fantastic for kind of showing who you are, but it doesn't sound as amazing as the 59 facts that you have. So do you have a little thing that you do to kind of shift somebody between, you don't have to be the absolute expert on every single thing, you have to be relatable? Or
and that's a good point, because you want to have both, right? I mean, I've heard people talk about this term edutainment. You want to entertain and educate. So it's like doing a combination of, you want to be informative and helpful and have that voice that does show concern and that you're expert in what you do and you can help people, right? But like you said, you also want to show a little bit of yourself and who you are and your brand. And that doesn't mean you have to be, there's some people that are just kind of naturally out there and like they're good on camera and they sound great and they're exciting, and like that's awesome for them. If that's their personality and that's who they are and their voice of their brand is maybe more fun and silly and exciting, that's great. But you don't have to be that to still be a presence or to have your brand and your voice come across. It's not about like morphing yourself into what I think people want to see on social media or anything like that. It's really just taking that time again to identify, who are you trying to talk to? What is your lane that you want to be known for? And then just spend a little bit of time. It does help to have somebody else. If you don't have a team of people or a marketing person, it does help to have someone else to brainstorm these things with, to really identify what is your voice? What do you want to be known for? And we've done things in our marketing group before where we talk about, like, if it was a coffee shop and someone walked in, what's the feeling that you would want them to have when they came into your coffee shop, and those types of things. Just thinking about that can help guide you. And it doesn't even mean, there may be somebody that really is not comfortable on camera. You can still do marketing and communications. Video is excellent, but if you're really not comfortable doing that, don't do it, because it's going to come across in the video. If you force yourself to get on camera and make videos and you're so uncomfortable the whole time, it will show. You can still have, articles, you can have videos where it's not you in the video. You can still have all kinds of communications and helpful, interesting, entertaining things going on, without trying to push yourself to be something that you're not.
Okay, so what's funny is I saw a comedy show last night where one of the people, their shtick was they didn't like to make eye contact. And so they actually did a whole comedy piece on not making eye contact with the audience, and it was actually hilarious. So I would actually even challenge, if you're not completely comfortable with those things, you can still make it quite memorable.
True. Yeah. And even just getting creative with how you do it too, because I've seen advisors who weren't great on camera, talking directly to the camera and looking at it. But as soon as they positioned the video where it was them on one side of the desk and another person on the other side, and the other person was asking them questions. Right. So instead of looking at the camera, they're looking at a real person that's sitting in there and talking to them about the topic, and their demeanor totally changed. And it looked so much more natural and pleasant. And I was like, this is so much better than him forcing himself to, look directly at the camera and be awkward. So yeah, it's about experimenting and being flexible, right? Like, okay, I'm going to try this and try a few things and get out of my comfort zone and spend time on it. And you may be surprised at how great you are at doing some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's great. The advice is great. Give it a chance, because Because if you dig down into some of Christopher's first attempts at doing a video, he tried to do the straight on, look at the camera, be as serious as possible, and you just almost can't believe it's him. I really
Right.
said that's not the person I know. Do you know that? And nobody wants another version, 3 million versions of someone straight at the camera in monotone. So
Right. I
yep.
agree. You're right.
I'd love to just learn a little bit more from, your experiences. So would you be able to share a mistake that you made early in your career, or while you were building your business, advisor expressions, and how that experience helped the business grow or evolve?
Ooh. I've made tons of mistakes and hopefully I really tried to learn from them and grow from them each time and not beat myself up about it, because that's just part of life, right? I think in the beginning of starting this company, I had a design company before I was in the financial services world working in-house. So it wasn't my first company, but before, when I had a design company, it was like for everybody. And then this time I was very focused on, this is going to be for financial services and the logistics industry, because those are the two industries that I've worked in, and I felt passionate about helping people in those industries and thought I could be the most helpful. So instead of trying to do it all for everybody, it was more focused. But I still had a little bit of that mentality when I started this company, of, even though I'm in finance, I'm going to help financial advisors and small broker dealers that need marketing support. I still kind of was wearing the hat of like, okay, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And that was good. I learned more things, but there was an advisor who I was helping, and I kind of was like her sales assistant also during that time, because I was just excited, like, well, yeah, I can do that. And if you have these lead calls coming in, I'll be the first call and I'll talk to them and vet it, and I'll see if it's worth an appointment with you. And, I had like a phone line to her office. And so again, it was good because I learned, but, is that what I want to be doing or should be doing for that person? No. It was good experience and knowledge, but now I know, here's what I'm good at. Here's where I'm going to be the most efficient and best able to help you with your marketing. And then if there's another vendor or person, and I'll always tell advisors, because a lot of advisors I work with have a team or an in-house team or an assistant or something. And so a lot of times I'm like, well, yes, I could do that, but do you want to pay me to do that? Or should we have your assistant do that? And then I stay focused on the marketing messaging and things and coordinate with your assistant or an in-house person. If you want them to actually send the emails or follow up with people. So I think it gave me some good experience. But yeah, I want to help people. It's a good thing. But sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, I can do that. That's great. Just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Did you take away from those experiences? It sounds like to me that you realize like you can't do everything well, which I think if you work in like marketing and comms specifically, because I also come from a comms background, like a PR and media background, and people want to throw everything at the people who do marketing and comms. And I think as you start to actually do it, you realize there's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so many ways you can like be effective. Right. And is that kind of what you've taken away from those experiences?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's very true. And we do tend to do that, right? Like we want to, well, that's kind of related to this, so let's put it on that person or have them do that also. But usually there's a balance that can be found amongst all that that works better for everybody, for me and for the client too, ultimately. Because to be honest, like what they're paying me is going to be more than what they're paying an assistant or someone else. So yeah, you can pay me to go through your spreadsheets and stuff like that, but that's not really the best use of my talent or your resources and your money. So let's come up with a better way to do it.
And it's nice of you to tell them that, as opposed to some people would just be like, yeah, we'll take more money.
Yeah. that almost kind of leads up to the question now, though, of AI is everywhere. And so the question is, right now in marketing, where do you think it's genuinely useful for advisors, and where do you actually think it's falling short?
That's a hard question because it's so broad, we know, right? And there's so many uses of it, and it really depends on the person and their goals. I mean, if it's a solo advisor and they don't have a team and it's just them, right? And they're an independent advisor. I mean, who am I to say that they shouldn't be using AI to help them put together their email campaigns and their articles and communications? Is that better than nothing, or is it better to not do it if you don't have the ability and the resources to put that together? I have found it's best used as like a helper. So if you are stuck and you're trying to brainstorm, or, I write a ton of articles and a ton of content and email campaigns and social posts and all that stuff. So sometimes I'm stumped, right? I'm like, okay, I'm writing another article about how to deal with market volatility for an advisor group, right? I've written many of those over the years, but maybe I go into Gemini or I go into a tool and say, like, what are some of people's top fears about market volatility, or what's like some of the top questions they have, or that they think, it prompts some ideas that maybe gives me like, oh, I didn't think of that, or I thought I knew this. And not that it's always right or it's exactly what I'm going to use, but just as kind of like a tool to bounce ideas off of. It can give me some good ideas for the basis of an article. I know advisors have used it for outlining presentations or outlining content. I think it's best as a helper tool like that, where you're brainstorming or getting it started, or a draft, or maybe the skeleton of it, and then write it yourself or have somebody write it. To me, I don't care for what just comes out direct from AI. I feel like I can tell when people just use AI to write the whole thing. But again, some advisors, that may not be important to them, that it sounds a little bit dry or a little bit sterile. They may be like, hey, look, this is the only way I can get something out, is if I use this tool to do it. But as a brainstorming tool, as a tool to outline things, I think it can be very helpful. Also, sometimes as a editing tool, because I'll write stuff and then I'll look and I'll be like, that paragraph is kind of clunky. I don't know what I did there. And so sometimes I'll feed that part back in and say, can you edit this or give me some options? And honestly, there's sometimes I don't like what they edit, or there's just one sentence that they restructured in how I wrote it that I'm like, oh, that's more clear how they wrote it. And then there's other times that I'm like, no, it's not really that much better. So I'm just going to do it myself. The graphics, I think, are terrible right now. I know the technology is changing and growing, and I know some people are digging it. As a designer, like, that's my background as a graphic designer. The images drive me nuts. Even if it's a good AI job, I can tell it's AI right away.
Have you seen that pushback from people? Where like they'll just, like, I've heard a lot of people say, I'd rather see something hand designed that looked bad than see something AI made that looks like really good.
Yes. And it goes back to what you guys were talking about being authentic and finding your own brand. I would rather you guys see an image of me where maybe I have like dark circles under my eyes, or like my hair looks a little weird on one side. I'd rather you guys see that and know, like, oh, well, that's Erika. That's just, she was having a weird hair day or something. Then to see a picture of me, it's just a person. Or if you see a picture of me that's like so airbrushed in Photoshop that you're like, is that Erika? You can't see my wrinkles, and you're like,
yeah, you kind of lost me on that one, Erika.
This for my brand, then I'll speak for
that's
myself.
fair.
For my brand, I'd rather have it be authentic and it's me. But I will say the AI tools built into photo tools are super helpful, because we do have times where, you have a group of advisors and people leave, people join, and instead of coordinating a whole photo shoot for like one person to be added into a photo or to take them out, I could always do that in Photoshop, but it would take me so long
Mm,
to go in and make it look natural. Where now the AI tools that are in Photoshop, I can go in there and like, okay, give me 2 minutes, and Kalin,
Wow.
I'll send you back, a new file in a couple minutes that has the person edited. So the AI tools, like within things like that, or I posted a video recently on social media where I used it to make a T-shirt for one of my friends is doing a charity free throw basketball event for a local charity here. And so I was going to go and cheer her on. And I'm like, I want to make a shirt with her on it in like a pink basketball jersey and her name on it and do like an iron on and show up. And it took me less than 10 minutes on
Wow.
Gemini, on their graphic tool, to go in and feed it a picture of her. I did take it back out into Photoshop and do like a tiny edit real quick that it didn't get quite right. But I mean, it was pretty cool for something silly and fun like that to be able
Right.
to show up and support her and put a smile on my friend's face and delight the people at the event. Like, thumbs up to AI for that use.
yeah.
That's a great story of how that actually helps you with your creativity. It's not limiting your creativity,
Yeah.
but it actually, if you didn't have that tool, you might have to go, it's going to take too long to do this. I'm just going to
Yeah.
show up.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, I think it's easy to see right now. It's still pretty easy to see AI, what an AI image is, and it makes me want to turn the page faster. Do you know? So I
Yeah.
think that whole thing about authentic, just I'd rather know Erika has a bad hair day every so often than
Yeah.
having just a beautiful glossy one, because I'm not
Right.
hoping that you are a Kardashian and I finally met you. I'm
Yeah.
looking for you to be a real person with real thoughts. So,
Yeah.
You've been running your business since 2016. Happy 10-year anniversary. I don't know if you
Thank
thought
you.
about that for this year.
Thank you.
Was there ever a point when it sounds like there wasn't as I hear you speak, but was there a point ever where you were worried, like, this isn't going to work? That, I might not be successful at this, like specifically being in financial services.
I think not since I've started this company. When I worked at the office there was a lot of wonderful things about that time in my life, and I had some wonderful mentors and coworkers that I learned so much from. But being part of a bigger company and having the political stuff that's going on there, yeah, I was like, oh, I can do this. I don't want to do this. Like, this is not a good fit for me. But and that's part of why I left and started my own business, so I could get back to working directly with advisors, not so much the corporate world of business and things that you have to deal with. So I got back to just doing marketing, working directly with advisors. And the flexibility that comes with working for yourself is wonderful. But I don't think I ever really thought, oh, I might not be successful as far as it working. I didn't know if I would be successful monetarily. Like, I don't know if this is going to make me as much money as a corporate job, right? But to me, that wasn't really success. That wasn't how I was defining success. I had decided that having more autonomy over my workday and having more creativity where I'm doing more of the marketing work myself, that stuff was more important than money. So I don't know. I didn't know if it would ever be bigger than just me. So I didn't know if it would be successful as far as like, is it going to grow and maybe be a bigger company? I was lucky. I had a few advisors that as soon as I left my last job, they hired me right away from that firm. So they were still with that firm, but they were like, oh, well, we're going to hire you as our marketing person. And some of them 10 years later, I still do marketing for them. So I had a little book of business, a little tiny book of loyal people right in the beginning. So, but I think the most wonderful thing I've seen over the last 10 years is me being able to hire other people. It's still a small team. I have 2 other full-time people that work for me, but I'm able to offer them those things where they can have autonomy over their work day. They can have creativity. They can have flexibility in what they're doing. So those values and those things that were important to me why I started this company, now I can offer that to a couple of other people. So I don't maybe have as much money as I had back then, but I'm definitely successful in my my definition of it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, kind of in some of the closing questions, so you have either been working in financial services firms or working adjacent to financial services firms most of this part of your career. Is there any kind of is there any finance? Is there any kind of idea, a myth that you had about financial things that you grew up that you had to change? Did it challenge you in certain ways, basically?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, my parents were pretty good teachers. Like when I was young, they made me get a checking account and get a checkbook and, learn those things. Um, the value of saving. Like I was lucky that I had parents that taught me about that and that was something I knew about. Um, but yeah, I guess being adjacent to financial services, like, I guess the biggest thing would be knowing that you have to actively participate in your future financial state. Like it's not just going to happen that like, okay, well, I'm just responsible, so everything's going to be fine. That you have to be a lot more intentional about realizing how much things cost and planning ahead and not just relying on Social Security and thinking, oh, well, I've done the right thing my whole life, so I should just be fine in retirement, knowing that, no, this has to be like a very detailed, intentional process, I think is the biggest thing I've learned working with advisors.
Yeah. I think that's funny because I think sometimes people look at retirement like it's like just graduating. Like I'm graduating
Yeah,
from school.
right.
Like it's just a cultural moment. And it's like, no, there's a lot of things that, get you to that
Yeah.
point. So no, that's cool. So if you could rewrite the way that financial conversations happened, what would it look like for you? How do you think financial conversations should happen? The framework.
Well, in my house with kids, with preteen and teen, it's a lot of talk about the value of money and understanding the difference between wants and needs
Yeah, yeah.
and the value of delayed gratification. Like, and that's for me as an adult too, right? That, hey, if I want to have an early retirement or, a retirement that's not filled with anxiety about am I going to be able to pay for everything, I've got to delay some gratification. So having more conversations about that than, what are the newest shoes that my kids want to buy or, like things like that it's like, yes, that's fun. And that there's some room for that in finance, but, let's focus on the bigger picture stuff, which of course as kids is not fun, but as adults, that's not fun too. So that's
It's
again,
never
the
fun.
nuance of as doing marketing for advisors, that how do we communicate some of these really important things without it sounding like we're beating people over the head or trying to teach them a lesson. It's more like, hey, we're trying to be helpful and prepare you. We want you to know about this stuff that's not fun sometimes to talk about, but we promise it'll be worth it if you do.
Right. So you're probably wrapping up, be authentic and know that it's worth the conversation, right?
Yes.
So,
Take the time to invest in just looking at what am I trying to communicate? How am I communicating? Who do I want to communicate with? And just even a little start. You don't have to start all of it at once, right? So it can be a piecemeal thing. Like, let me just look at my emails that I'm sending to my clients. Am I keeping in touch with them? Something like that. Start with one thing and then build from there.
oh, well, very good. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kalin. I feel like I've covered the things this has been
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I feel like you give a very kind of calm, process-oriented way of doing this. So I would say for financial advisors, if you need someone who knows a roadmap and is very calm about it, this is the person you should work with. So,
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was great talking with you guys about a wide variety of topics. We covered some exciting things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So if you want to know more, you can always email us at sales@hunterbenefits.com. We also have a website, hunterbenefits.com. And Erica, what's the best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants more information?
They could look at my website, advisorexpressions.com, and that's got all my contact information on there.
Well, fantastic. Okay. Take care. Have a wonderful week.